So neobanks have sort of been all the rage in fintech for a while now, with larger bellwether neobanks sort of leading the way, like Chime Bank, for instance. And what a neobank is, it's basically for lack of a better explanation, a rented or leased bank license, where a fintech, money service business, money transmitter partners with an existing bank to effectively borrow or rent that chartered bank's depository services. So when you look at the landscape out there, there's quite a few. And I field inquiries all the time. And the question is, well, I want to start a neobank because I don't want to get a bank license, or I don't want to get a money service business, money transmitter license. And there's a perception that it's cheaper, and that perception is largely incorrect. At the low end in most instances, and it's important to note that the banks that do this, that will act as quasi-correspondent banks, right? You like drawing the comparison to the offshore world, where you get a license in a domicile that doesn't have a central bank, then you in turn partner with a correspondent bank in a jurisdiction that does, in order to offer the array of banking services and redundancy that you need. This is much the same thing. But it's important to note that there's banks that exist solely for this function, right? And they're banks that you've undoubtedly never heard of, like Stride Bank, Bancorp Bank, and others. And, they don't necessarily have even a physical presence anywhere in this country. They just seemingly are an office in Kansas or something like that. And what they do is they look for these like fintech deals, or they're created for like these fintech deals. And, the perception that it's in fact cheaper to go the neobank route is largely incorrect, because there's always a fee, right? The partnership fee on top of potential due diligence fees can be significant. The cheapest I've seen it in my experience has been $80,000. Now, to obtain a bank license from scratch, obviously your fee cost may not be that high, right? But your capital requirements are. So it's another route in the neobank. Is it advantageous in that sense, where you don't show the capital requirement, or have to show the capital requirements, such as, say, to get a state chartered bank where you're averaging 4 to 5 million minimum capital to obtain a bank license. We don't have to necessarily show that to be a neobank, but there's no set rules. There's no preordained rules for being a neobank, right? There's what the correspondent bank wants you to do or wants to see. And that can include capital requirements, which I've seen as high as 2.5 million. So, you can set this up, and it's a great thing because you don't have to go through the scrutiny of obtaining a bank license, but it's not without its cost or its pitfalls. It's quicker, obviously, because it's just a contract between yourself and the correspondent bank, but it's not necessarily cheaper. And moreover, it can put you in somewhat of a precarious spot. And there's a company called Aslo that ran into this, where they were a neobank, and they were providing corporate business banking, small business banking, and they lost their correspondent bank. Well, they went out of business, right? Because that contract ended or could have been terminated for cause, and then you're scrambling for another correspondent bank, and if you can't find one, you're out of business. Right, so it's an interesting concept, and it works very well for the Chimes of the world, but it's not that easy to do, nor is it that cost effective to do. And what I've noticed, just from a pragmatic and sort of experience standpoint, is that neobanks and the correspondent banks that will participate in such relationships tend to want to see proof of concept before they'll move to partner. So it's not something where you necessarily have a platform and an idea to provide either quasi-banking services, micro loan lending services, what have you. They want to see proof of concept, and that proof of concept may require you to obtain a license of some nature, right? Typically a money transmitter license, and definitely a money service business registration with FinCEN. So there may be that stage pre-organization or pre-contract of this neobank that you actually find yourself in a situation where you have to go through some scrutiny from a licensure standpoint to obtain like a money transmitter license or something similar to effectuate the neobank relationship in order to effectively sell yourself, because that's the process, right? I've been in the negotiations, and that's the process. You're selling yourself to the correspondent bank and hoping that they'll take you on and partner with you and avail your company of their depository and services and overall bank charter. So interesting concept. Loads of banks out there, banks you've never heard of. Happy to discuss those and divulge those to anybody who's interested. Feel free to hit me up, Adam at AdamTracy, TRACY.io, and I'll talk to you soon.